She was declared dead 3 years ago. Today she's cleaning rifles while Navy SEALs mock her every move. The hushed whispers of a fallen hero, a phantom from classified operations, now echoed through the mundane clang of metal in a lowly armory bay. How could a woman, once believed to have perished in the line of duty, end up scrubbing weapons for the very unit that seemingly abandoned her? What profound secret forced her to accept such a demeaning existence, to live a life shrouded in humiliation while hiding a past that screamed of valor and unimaginable sacrifice? The air itself seemed to hum with the weight of unanswered questions, hinting at a truth far more dangerous than any weapon she now meticulously cleaned. A psychological impossibility unfolded in plain sight. A dead operative, a hero by any measure, existing as an invisible janitor. Her presence was a paradox, triggering an immediate, visceral emotional response in anyone privy to her true story, the stark contrast between death and life, hero and servant. It ignited a primal survival instinct, a subconscious understanding that something profoundly dangerous lay hidden beneath her placid exterior. What truly happened to make her disappear, to shed her identity and assume this quiet, subservient role? The narrative began with fast, bold dialogue, a stark contradiction that instantly established the gravity of her predicament, teasing the very moment when a weapon, placed into her hands, would shatter every preconceived notion. The silence around her was not empty. It was a deliberate choice, a calculated restraint. Every methodical movement, every precise wipe of the rifle, was a testament to skills that far exceeded the demands of a mere maintenance technician. There was a subtle rhythm to her actions, a quiet confidence that hinted at a deeper, more profound understanding of the instruments of war. The casual, often cruel remarks from those around her seemed to bounce off an invisible shield, leaving her unperturbed, her focus unwavering. But for those with discerning eyes, a flicker of something dangerous, something intensely powerful lay just beneath the surface of her controlled demeanor, waiting for the opportune moment to reveal itself. The paradox of her existence was a heavy cloak she wore, a constant reminder of a life she had been forced to abandon. Each day was a performance, a meticulous act of anonymity, yet every fiber of her being yearned for the purpose she had once embodied. The stark reality of her current role against the backdrop of her legendary past created an unbearable tension, a silent scream that only a select few could ever truly hear. The mundane became extraordinary through her presence, transforming the sterile armory into a stage for a quiet, unfolding drama. The stage was set, the characters in place, and the audience unknowingly held its breath for the inevitable unveiling. Her story was a modern legend, whispered in hushed tones among those who understood the true cost of covert operations. She was a ghost, not in the spectral sense, but in the tragic reality of being erased from the records, a casualty of a system designed to protect its secrets above all else. Yet here she was, not in a shadowed tomb, but under the harsh fluorescent lights of a military armory. Her hands, once stained with the grime of battlefields, now polished the tools of other warriors. The dramatic irony was palpable. The casual dismissal she endured was a testament to the profound effectiveness of her disguise and the terrible price of her survival. The very air around her thrummed with the promise of a truth far grander than anyone could imagine, a quiet premonition of the storm gathering beneath her serene exterior. The Naval Special Warfare Training Facility in Coronado was a fortress of ambition and raw power, an elite SEAL training compound where access to the armory was as restricted as the secrets held within its walls. It was an environment saturated with hierarchy and a palpable testosterone-heavy atmosphere, a place where rank and physical prowess dictated respect, or the lack thereof. Here, amidst the scent of gun oil and the quiet hum of air conditioning, Sarah Mitchell moved with a controlled precision that belied her unassuming presence. In her early 30s, with blonde hair pulled back tightly, she wore the plain maintenance uniform without a name tape, rendering her an anonymous fixture in a world defined by designation and bravado. Sarah worked methodically, her movements economical and efficient as she cleaned various weapons systems. To the casual observer, she was simply invisible support staff, another civilian contractor quietly performing a necessary if unglamorous job. Yet every action, every precise calibration of a scope, every deliberate stroke of the cleaning brush hinted at a deeper understanding, a muscle memory honed by experiences far removed from the ordinary. There was a subtle, almost imperceptible glint in her eyes when a SEAL spoke of a difficult mission, a flicker of recognition that hinted at shared experiences, increasing the early tension. Her journey to this armory was a deliberate, intricate fabrication. The CIA's Witness Protection Division had meticulously crafted her new identity after Operation Nightfall, forged civilian contractor credentials, a fake employment history with military maintenance companies, and a deliberate placement in a low-visibility position. Sarah was hidden in plain sight, not in an obscure, isolated location, but within the secure confines of a SEAL base, because it was considered the safest place for someone with her skill set and background to maintain their proficiency without raising suspicion. The very presence of so many high-level operators created a natural camouflage. Who would look for a legendary operative among the very best, especially if she was disguised as the most unremarkable person in the room? Her handler, a shadow in the clandestine world, had arranged this armory job with a dual purpose: to keep her skills honed and combat-ready, even in exile, while simultaneously maintaining her deep cover. Base security, unaware of the intricate web of deception, had cleared her as a standard, innocuous civilian contractor. The weapons cache room itself was a sterile shrine to state-of-the-art firearms, gleaming metal and cold steel lining the racks. The morning routine was a precise choreography. SEALs streamed in, retrieving their weapons for the day's rigorous training exercises. The hierarchical atmosphere was undeniable, a clear demarcation between officers, enlisted personnel, contractors, and the lowest rung of support staff. Gender dynamics were equally stark. This was a male-dominated world, steeped in traditional military structure, where a woman in a maintenance uniform was often seen as an anomaly, an afterthought to the serious business of warfighting. Key interactions solidified this environment. Commander Rick Bulldog Torres, an arrogant team leader in his mid-40s, exemplified the dismissive attitude towards support staff. His second-in-command, Staff Sergeant Mike Chen, mirrored Torres's condescension, a loyal echo of his superior's disdain. Only Petty Officer Jake Morrison, a younger SEAL, displayed a flicker of slightly more respect, though still tinged with the pervasive dismissiveness of the unit. Sarah worked in deliberate, almost unnerving silence while the SEALs made casual sexist remarks about the cleaning lady and civilian contractors. She showed no outward reaction. It was not submission, but a calculated restraint, a silent refusal to acknowledge their petty barbs. Her weapon handling technique, however, was subtly, almost imperceptibly, too skilled for a mere maintenance staff member, a quiet promise of a looming revelation. Foreshadowing elements abounded for those perceptive enough to notice. Sarah's muscle memory with the weapons, the ease with which she manipulated them, strongly suggested extensive combat experience. Her situational awareness, a quiet vigilance that constantly scanned the room, far exceeded that of a typical civilian contractor. There was a slight, almost unconscious tactical positioning to her movements while cleaning, a subtle angling of her body that spoke of ingrained combat habits. A brief moment of recognition would flash in her eyes when she overheard specific military terminology, a fleeting flicker of the past in her otherwise impassive gaze. The tension simmered, a slow burn beneath the surface of the mundane. If you're finding yourself captivated by Sarah's silent resolve, imagine what else she's hiding. What secrets do you think someone like her might carry? The moment the micro cliffhanger arrived, it was almost imperceptible to the untrained eye. Torres, in a calculated act of petty dominance, deliberately knocked over a stack of freshly cleaned weapons, demanding she reclean them. Sarah's hand, poised mid-reach to pick up a cleaning cloth, froze. For a fleeting second, a glimpse of something dangerous, something profoundly controlled, flickered in her eyes. A silent promise of consequences yet to unfold. The quiet of the armory seemed to deepen, heavy with unspoken power. The tension escalated imperceptibly when Torres announced the upcoming live fire exercise. Sarah, a silent fixture, continued her meticulous cleaning while the SEALs geared up around her, the clatter of equipment a familiar symphony. Torres, ever observant despite his arrogance, finally noticed her precise weapon assembly technique. It was too fast, too professional for someone in her supposed role, a glaring inconsistency that pricked at his carefully constructed sense of superiority. "Hey, cleaning lady!" Torres's voice cut through the air, laced with mocking challenge. "You seem to know your way around a rifle." Sarah remained silent, her hands continuing their fluid dance across the weapon's components, a deliberate refusal to acknowledge his bait. Torres, annoyed by her unwavering composure, pressed on. "I'm talking to you, sweetheart. Where'd you learn to handle weapons like that?" His tone was designed to provoke, to shatter her quiet facade. The group dynamics shifted. Other SEALs noticed the interaction, their attention drawn by Torres's escalating aggression. Chen, ever the sycophant, joined in mockingly, a smirk playing on his lips. But Morrison hesitated, a subtle unease creeping into his expression. Something felt undeniably off about Sarah's unshakable composure under such direct pressure. It wasn't the reaction of someone caught off guard, but rather of someone in complete control. Another SEAL, a burly master-at-arms named Miller, exchanged a quick, suspicious glance with a teammate, his brow furrowed as he watched Sarah's fluid movements. Torres, emboldened by the lack of response, decided to escalate the humiliation. He deliberately staged a test, snatching his service weapon from its rack and thrusting it into Sarah's hands. "All right then," he sneered, "demonstrate proper cleaning technique for the team. Let's see what civilian contractors are really made of." He fully intended to embarrass her, to expose her inevitable failure to meet military standards in front of his men. Sarah took the weapon without the slightest hesitation. Her movements were fluid, devoid of any wasted motion. In a blur of practiced efficiency, she field-stripped the rifle in precisely 12 seconds, a feat faster than most of the seasoned SEALs present. Then, with an almost supernatural calm, she reassembled it, her eyes closed, her fingers working with mechanical precision. There were no words, no boasts, just the undeniable language of expertise. The silence in the armory was absolute, broken only by the soft clicks of the weapon components. This was the false twist trap. The viewer expecting an immediate explosion of anger from Sarah, a furious retaliation for the insult. Instead, she merely showcased her skill, holding back the true force of her hidden power, making the wait for the finale almost unbearable. This was the turning point. Torres, his authorities suddenly threatened by her unexpected display, lashed out with personal attacks. He began questioning her presence on base, his voice rising in an attempt to regain control. He insinuated she was sleeping her way into armory access, desperate to find a flaw, any flaw, in her impenetrable composure. "Demands to know her real qualifications," he snarled, his face contorted in a mix of anger and disbelief. A few of the other SEALs chuckled uneasily, but the laughter died quickly, replaced by a growing discomfort. Sarah maintained her calculated silence. There was still no verbal response, but her body language shifted subtly, imperceptibly. The earlier air of submissiveness evaporated, replaced by the coiled readiness of a controlled predator. She set down the weapon with deliberate, almost artistic precision, her actions speaking volumes where words would have fallen short. The weight of her unspoken power filled the room, pressing down on Torres's bluster. The micro cliffhanger arrived as Morrison, his earlier unease now solidified into a dawning realization, leaned in to whisper to Chen. "That's not how civilians move," he murmured, his eyes fixed on Sarah. Torres, oblivious in his rage, continued his verbal assault, blind to the profound shift occurring in the perceptions of his team. The camera lingered on Sarah's hands, steady, calloused in specific patterns, with combat scars barely visible beneath the surface. Something was profoundly, terribly wrong with this simple cleaning woman, and the air crackled with the imminent revelation. Did you find this twist as compelling as we did? We'd love to hear your thoughts on what's coming next. Before Vasquez's arrival, the armory was a study in mundane military routine. The clatter of weapons being racked and unracked, the low murmur of SEALs discussing their upcoming live-fire exercise, and the ever-present scent of bore cleaner filled the air. Sarah continued her work, a quiet phantom in the bustling space, her focused movements an almost meditative counterpoint to the boisterous energy of the operator. Torres, still simmering from Sarah's silent defiance during his test, occasionally shot her glances of contempt, his jaw tight with unresolved frustration. He prided himself on his ability to read people, to dominate a room, and her impassive demeanor was a personal affront he couldn't reconcile. Meanwhile, a secure comms report had just landed on Vasquez's desk, flagging unusual activity in a dormant assets classified file. It wasn't an alert, not exactly, but a subtle anomaly that necessitated a routine, unscheduled visit to Coronado. The catalyst arrived in the form of Captain Elena Vasquez, a Special Operations Command liaison whose authoritative presence instantly commanded attention. Her gaze swept across the armory, halting abruptly when it landed on Sarah. Tension rippled through the room as Vasquez's expression shifted, morphing from professional assessment to undisguised shock, then settling into a profound, almost reverent respect. The air thickened with unspoken history. "Sarah, Ghost 2-3, Mitchell," Vasquez's voice cut through the stunned silence, imbued with a gravitas that brooked no argument. "Didn't expect to see you here," Torres, his face a mask of confusion, stammered. "Ghost 2-3? What the hell does that mean?" Torres had once tried out for a highly specialized joint task force, the very unit known for producing operators like Ghost 2-3. He had failed the grueling selection course, deemed not quite elite enough for their clandestine operations, where the identities and call signs of their top-tier assets were kept under lock and key, a level of secrecy far beyond his pay grade or clearance. Only a handful of the most senior intelligence and special operations commanders even knew the full extent of Ghost 2-3's operational history. Vasquez's gaze, sharp and unwavering, shifted to him. "It means," she stated, her voice resonating with quiet power, "you've been insulting a Medal of Honor recipient." The words hung in the air, a hammer blow to Torres's arrogance, shattering the carefully constructed illusion of Sarah's enmity. The backstory began to unfold, each word a revelation. Vasquez, with a solemn deference, began to reveal Sarah's true identity to the stunned group. She was a former Delta Force operator, a legend whispered about in hushed tones within Task Force 88. Her call sign, Ghost 2-3, was not merely a designation, but a symbol of extraordinary skill and unwavering courage. She had led classified operations in the unforgiving theaters of Afghanistan and Syria, a phantom warrior striking fear into the hearts of America's enemies. Officially, she had been declared killed in action during Operation Nightfall 3 years ago, a sacrifice mourned by those few who knew the truth of her valor. Vasquez continued, painting a vivid, tragic picture of the incident that had killed Sarah. It was a deep-cover infiltration mission, meticulously planned, that had gone horribly wrong. Her team, a brotherhood forged in the crucible of countless engagements, had been betrayed by faulty intelligence, walking into an ambush from which there was seemingly no escape. Sarah, alone against overwhelming odds, had held off enemy forces for 6 grueling hours, a single force of unyielding defiance. She had saved 23 hostages from certain death, but in doing so had lost her entire team. Declared dead when extraction failed, she had been officially erased, her sacrifice swallowed by the shadows of classified operations. Sarah's first words, delivered in a voice quiet yet resonating with the weight of her past, were a stark commentary on her survival. "They weren't supposed to make it out," she murmured, her gaze distant, fixed on a memory only she could see. "I was," Vasquez, her voice softened by understanding, responded. "The agency needed you to disappear. New identity, new life." Sarah's reply was laced with a bitter irony. "Some life," she stated, the 2 words encapsulating the profound loneliness of her forced exile. Then came the reverse twist, a shocking revelation, right after the main one. Vasquez suddenly stiffened, her gaze narrowing on Sarah. "But that's not the full story, is it, Sarah?" she said, her voice turning cold. "The official record states you were declared KIA, but some intel suggests you chose to stay behind to ensure the enemy truly believed you were gone, that you engineered your own disappearance to escape the pressures of command, to shed the weight of impossible expectation." The air crackled with a new, unexpected tension, as if the ground beneath their feet had just shifted. It was a calculated move by Vasquez, a test, a probe into Sarah's true motivations, revealing the complex layers of her decision. The psychological twist was a brutal realization for Torres. He slowly, agonizingly understood that his petty humiliation tactics had been directed at a woman who had survived unimaginable horrors, torture, and imprisonment at the hands of her captors, unyielding even under the most brutal interrogation. This seemingly docile cleaning woman had killed 47 enemy combatants in a single engagement, a testament to her lethal efficiency. She had refused to break, her spirit unbowed, her secrets fiercely protected. And ultimately, she had chosen exile over recognition, a life of anonymity over the accolades she so profoundly deserved. A brief, intense combat flashback sequence flickered in the minds of those listening, fueled by Vasquez's words. Images of urban warfare in Aleppo, the chaos of being outnumbered 20-1, Sarah fighting with improvised weapons, protecting terrified civilians while her team died around her. This was the moment she became Ghost 2-3, a force of nature, a legend born in the crucible of unimaginable sacrifice. Vasquez continued, explaining Sarah's mythical status within the special operations communities. Stories of her unparalleled courage and tactical genius were whispered among operators, her techniques studied and named after her, training protocols based on her unconventional yet devastatingly effective methods. She was a living legend, a warrior they all thought was dead, a ghost returned to haunt their complacency. The dynamics in the armory shifted seismically. The SEALs' attitudes transformed from mockery to a profound, almost worshipful awe. Morrison, his face etched with respect, stepped forward, his earlier dismissiveness replaced by a quiet deference. Chin, unable to make eye contact, shuffled his feet, his earlier mocking sneer completely gone. Torres, his ego shattered, struggled visibly with the cognitive dissonance, his world turned upside down. Others whispered among themselves, their voices hushed with newfound reverence. Sarah, the silent cleaning lady, was now revealed as the true authority in the room. Sarah, still quietly resolute, articulated the burden of her chosen path. "I came here to disappear," she stated, her voice barely a whisper, yet it filled the room. "To be nobody." Vasquez, understanding the profound weight of those words, responded, "You can't disappear from what you are." A micro cliffhanger lingered in the air. Torres, his authority completely undermined, his ego in tatters, made a desperate final attempt to maintain some semblance of control. Sarah's response, whatever it would be, would define not only her future, but also how everyone in that room would perceive true strength and leadership. If you're as stunned by this reveal as the SEALs were, share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you do in Sarah's situation? Torres, his humiliation burning, made a desperate attempt to cling to his crumbling authority. "Proof," he demanded, his voice thin, betraying the deeper insecurity about his own combat record. "I want proof that she's really Ghost 2-3. His desperation was palpable, a frantic attempt to reassert dominance by questioning the undeniable. The air crackled with the final, futile struggle of a man whose world had just been irrevocably overturned. Sarah's response was silent, yet devastating. She walked directly to Torres's weapon rack, her movements fluid and purposeful. Without a word, she selected his personal M4A1. Then, with an almost surgical precision, she field-stripped and reassembled it. Under combat conditions, her eyes closed, her movements accelerated as if under intense time pressure. Her hands, once dismissed as those of a cleaning lady, moved with an instinctive grace. Each action a testament to years of ingrained combat experience. Without uttering a single word, Sarah began a silent, mesmerizing demonstration of advanced combat techniques. She executed tactical reload sequences with breathtaking speed, her muscle memory flawless. Her close-quarters combat positioning was textbook, a masterclass in economy of motion and lethal efficiency. Weapon transitions from primary to secondary were executed with a seamless flow that spoke of countless hours under fire. Even her combat breathing, deep and controlled, was visible, a silent testament to the stress of real warfare that her body intrinsically remembered. Each movement, each subtle shift, screamed of a warrior forged in the crucible of true conflict. The group transformation was complete, profound. Morrison, his face etched with awe, stepped forward and offered a formal military salute, his respect now absolute. Chen, his earlier mockery completely eradicated, stood at rigid attention, unable to meet Sarah's gaze, his shame palpable. The junior SEALs whispered among themselves, their voices filled with genuine awe, their eyes wide with the realization that they were in the presence of a living legend. Torres, isolated and utterly exposed, watched his authority crumble into dust, his bravado replaced by a sickening realization of his own insignificance. Vasquez provided additional heart-wrenching details about Sarah's sacrifice. She revealed that Sarah could have been extracted much earlier from the ill-fated mission, a choice that would have saved her from the horrors that followed. Instead, she chose to stay, a deliberate act of self-sacrifice to save the remaining civilians caught in the crossfire. She had endured 72 hours of unimaginable torture at the hands of her captors, a living nightmare that would have broken lesser individuals. Yet, she never broke, never revealed operational details, her loyalty to her country and her fallen comrades absolute. The agency had been forced to kill her, to declare her officially deceased, not as punishment, but to protect the classified methods she had developed and the intelligence she possessed. The internal conflict was palpable when Vasquez extended the offer. "We need you back. New task force. Your command." Sarah's gaze became distant, her silence stretching into a long, agonizing pause. An intense internal struggle was visible on her face, a silent war between duty and the fragile peace she had found. Part of her, the warrior forged in fire, yearned to return to a life of purpose, to lead again, but survivor's guilt battled self-preservation, the ghosts of her lost team whispering their silent warnings. Her identity, once so clear-cut as Ghost 2-3, was now in crisis. Was she Sarah Mitchell, the quiet armory technician, or the legendary operative? The fear of losing another team, of witnessing more death, was a tangible weight on her shoulders, a trauma response triggered by the very offer designed to liberate her. The room's energy completely transformed. The mockery had evaporated, replaced by a profound reverence. Gender-based dismissal was gone, supplanted by professional respect. The rigid hierarchy dissolved, replaced by a recognition of true leadership that transcended rank and uniform. Words became secondary. Silence, imbued with the weight of her history, spoke volumes. Torres's final humiliation was complete. He realized with a sickening jolt that his own combat record, which he so proudly paraded, paled in comparison to Sarah's single mission. His verbal attacks, born of arrogance and insecurity, had been directed at a woman who had accomplished more in one engagement than his entire career combined. The realization was a bitter pill, crushing his ego into dust. Sarah, at the precipice of her choice, finally spoke, her voice still quiet but imbued with a profound certainty. "I didn't survive to be celebrated," she stated, her eyes unwavering. "I survived to remember them." Vasquez, ever understanding, offered a gentle counter. "They'd want you to live, not just exist." Sarah's response was a revelation of her complex inner world. "This is living," she said, her gaze sweeping over the weapons she so meticulously cared for. "Just differently." Collective recognition rippled through the room. One by one, the SEALs acknowledged Sarah, a silent testament to their transformed understanding. Morrison saluted her formally, his respect unassailable. Chen, humbled beyond words, offered a genuine apology, his voice choked with emotion. Others followed suit, their earlier disdain replaced by sincere awe. Torres stood utterly alone, isolated in his shame. His dominance evaporated. The power dynamic had completely reversed. Sarah, without speaking, had become the room's natural authority figure, her presence commanding an unspoken reverence. The micro-cliffhanger hung in the air. Sarah had to choose. Would she return to the Shadow Ops, the life of a ghost, or would she continue her self-imposed exile? Her decision would not only define her future, but also how everyone present understood true strength and the quiet power of sacrifice. Are you on the edge of your seat? Share your predictions for Sarah's choice in the comments. After a visible internal struggle, a profound battle fought within the confines of her own soul, Sarah declined Vasquez's offer. The decision cost her, and for the first time viewers glimpsed the raw pain of choosing safety over purpose, of relinquishing a life she was born to lead. "I've given enough," Sarah stated, her voice quiet but firm, a tremor of profound weariness beneath the surface. "Let someone else carry the weight." Vasquez, her gaze understanding, offered a poignant truth. "The weight doesn't go away," she said. "It just changes shape." Sarah's refusal was not born of fear, but of a deeper, more profound need for self-preservation. She simply could not bear the thought of losing another team, of witnessing more sacrifice, of enduring the soul-crushing grief that came with every mission gone wrong. The life of a task force commander, while tempting in its return to purpose, would consume her entirely, dragging her back into the abyss from which she had so narrowly escaped. She had finally found a fragile form of peace, a quiet sanctuary where her war was now internal, not external. Her battle had moved inside, a constant struggle to reconcile the legend with the woman. A brief, metaphorical flashback shimmered in her mind. A lone warrior, standing on a desolate plain, illuminated by the ghostly glow of a dozen unlit flares. Each flare represented a fallen comrade, a shared burden of command, and, as she watched, the unlit flares spontaneously combusted, threatening to engulf her in a blinding inferno. She had escaped that plane once, and she wouldn't return, not even for a cause she believed in. The symbolic moment unfolded quietly. Sarah returned to her task, cleaning weapons, but now everyone understood the profound significance of her actions. She was not merely maintaining equipment, she was maintaining readiness, a silent guardian ensuring that the tools of war were pristine, even as she herself sought solace from its ravages. Her silent service transformed into a respected ritual, a testament to her enduring commitment, albeit on her own terms. Torres, desperate for one last assertion of authority, attempted a final confrontation, demanding respect as the ranking officer. Sarah's response was devastating in its quiet power. "Command isn't about rank," she stated, her gaze unwavering, fixed on the hollowness in his eyes. "It's about who others follow when everything falls apart." The words hung in the air, a final, crushing blow to his fragile ego. A ripple effect spread quietly through the base. Word of the cleaning lady's true identity passed from SEAL to SEAL, then to other units, whispered with reverence. Other units began treating Sarah with an unspoken respect. New recruits warned about showing deference to the quiet woman in the armory. Her workspace, once mundane, slowly transformed into an unofficial shrine, the armory itself shifting from a practical space to a sacred one, imbued with the legend of Ghost 2-3. Morrison, deeply affected by the revelation, approached Sarah privately. He asked her about combat leadership. She began quietly mentoring younger SEALs, not through lectures or grand pronouncements, but through actions, through subtle demonstrations, teaching through the profound eloquence of example. The new dynamic in the armory was one of unspoken rules. No unnecessary conversation, respect conveyed through action, excellence in silence, and leadership demonstrated by unwavering example. Vasquez, in a parting moment, offered a final understanding. "You're still serving," she told Sarah, her voice soft, "just on your own terms." Sarah's reply was a profound, almost haunting truth. "Sometimes the most dangerous place," she stated, her gaze distant, "is where you feel safest." The legend of the Ghost continued to evolve, her presence becoming mythical. New personnel heard whispered stories, her techniques were studied and copied, and she quietly became the base's unofficial spiritual leader, the Ghost in plain sight. Torres, unable to function under Sarah's quiet, pervasive authority, eventually transferred out. His departure went unnoticed, a silent admission of his failure, while Sarah's presence became not just accepted but essential, a quiet pillar of strength and unspoken wisdom. Yet the weight of her choice, the decision to stay in exile, haunted her still. Dreams of her fallen team lingered, and she often wondered if she was truly hiding or genuinely healing, if she was betraying her purpose or finding a new one. She found a strange, paradoxical peace in the uncertainty, a quiet acceptance of her ongoing internal war. In a philosophical resolution, Sarah offered a profound insight to Morrison. Loudest voices, she said, her voice barely a whisper, usually have the least to say. Morrison, ever curious, asked, "What about the quiet ones?" Sarah's response, laden with the weight of experience, was a testament to her enduring spirit. "We're still fighting," she stated, her eyes holding the depth of countless battles, us differently. The symbolic closure was palpable. Sarah continued her routine, but now each cleaned weapon represented more than just equipment. It represented a life saved, a mission completed, a fallen teammate remembered, and a promise kept. The ending was open, a testament to the ongoing nature of her internal conflict. Sarah remained in her position by choice, not circumstance. Her identity is known, but not discussed. Internal conflict between duty and peace continues. New challenges will test her resolve. The legend of Ghost 2-3 evolves. The final image was a profound testament to her existence. Sarah, alone in the armory at sunset, methodically cleaning weapons. Through the window, the faint silhouettes of SEALs trained, executing techniques she had pioneered. She watched silently, a quiet guardian, knowing that her real war continues in shadows, the war within herself. The ultimate twist arrived, a final, poignant revelation. The camera revealed Sarah's personal weapon locker, still marked Ghost 2-3. Inside, nestled beside her Medal of Honor, was a faded photo of her fallen team. She hadn't retired. She had simply changed battlefields. The war had never truly ended. It had merely moved inside, a constant internal struggle. The closing symbolism was clear. The title card appeared, revealing the true meaning of her journey. Some warriors fight for glory, others fight for peace. Both battles are eternal. This story, her story, is a testament to the power of quiet strength. If you've been moved by Sarah's journey, share your thoughts below on what true strength means to you. We encourage you to subscribe for more stories of quiet heroism.
Hi, Henry đây. Các bạn vừa xem xong tập phim của series A Simple Woman. Mất 2 tuần để mình viết kịch bản này đấy. Bạn có nhận ra chi tiết nào thú vị ở đây không? Like nếu bạn để ý và subscribe để xem những tập tiếp theo. Thank you so much.